Hello and welcome again to the Writer Review. This is Eric Writer, and this week we're going to be stepping kind of outside the realm of movies this time to critique a documentary this time. A documentary that reeks of total importance and maybe something that could have you thinking. You know, over the years I've done, tons of movie reviews and a lot of them will have you thinking or second guessing, or maybe even something for us to ponder at. Because even through some of the stupidest movies, I could probably find some intellectual merit behind them. But this week, we're going to be looking at something that is very concerning towards ourselves, towards humanity, and something that needs to be addressed. Even though this documentary took place 10 years ago, I am here to celebrate the 10th anniversary of probably one of the most important documentaries that was ever filmed, and that is The 11th Hour. Now, The 11th Hour runs for 92 minutes long. It is directed by Nadia Connors and Leila Connors Petersen. It is produced by Leonardo DiCaprio, Leila Connors Petersen, Chuck Castleberry, and Brian Gerber. The script was done by Leonardo DiCaprio, uh, Nadia Connors, and Leila Connors Petersen. It is narrated by Leonardo DiCaprio. The score was done by Jean Pascal Bientu and Eric Avery. It is edited by Luis Alvarez and Pietro Scalia. And it was also financed by Adam Lewis and Pierre Andre Saint-Zerjou. And of course, like I said, it was narrated by Leonardo DiCaprio, and it features such celebrity uh, interviewees, which include Dr. Stephen Hawking, one of the great scientists of our time, Dr. David Suzuki, Russian or Soviet Premier Mikhail Gorbachev, and of course, Native American activist uh, Dr. Orrin Lyons. So, hey, make no bones about it. We all live in weird times. We now feed to believe that scientific understanding is synonymous to a system of belief. At this moment, no one has caused any convictions to contradict their theories, but the main topics is in the air in the scientific community right now. The main topics in the scientific community right now are evolution and the fears of our failing ecosystem caused by the effects of global warming due to our carelessness, our negligence, and just the human race just being plain selfish. I never thought that the law of physics even cared about our environmental concerns that could affect our ecosystem forever. Until then, I was left in the dark. And as we speak, we are still debating if the melting of our icebergs is a sign that our ecosystem is in declining health, or if it is a sign that Jesus Christ is coming back with a vengeance, ready to just wipe us out. It comes as no surprise that the movie had to include some anti science religious fanatic to appease some appraisal to the Republican Party's agenda. Thanks to this one specific individual, the Republicans are now obligated to believe that in spite of all the toxins polluting the air, the debris in our rivers, the massive oil spills, and the deforestation of our earth is just fine for the environment, if you have the power to believe. So, this documentary is chronicling all the damage that we have done to this planet Earth. Now, I'm not trying to go into becoming, a full blown hippie, but at the same time, it does raise eyebrows. See that? Raising eyebrows. No, in all seriousness, it does make us think here. It makes us concerned. It makes you at least a little bit concerned of what we have done to this planet, the damage that we have done by chopping trees just to make a new supermarket. Um, by dumping our ooze, debris, and all other assorted shit down our rivers, causing it concerns that if we end up swallowing some toxic waste down our throats, we could either mutate or we could just simply get really ill, and worst case scenario, a perpetual case of rigor mortis, better known as death. And not just to ourselves, but also to the wildlife. We're killing off many species, as many species have succumbed to extinction. And it's partially due to the human race. No matter who you are, we are destroying the earth. And we want to try our and if we don't change our ways, or if we continue this path of destruction, we will have very little to nothing to live by. It's it's a sad urgent state of emergency. And even though this documentary was done 10 years ago, it's still relevant to this day. Maybe we already have made some progress. And I know that the human race will try our best to make progress, but still, if we don't act soon, we will have dead fish swimming in our lakes. We will have dry land like a prairie. The polar caps will melt, and the polar bears and all the other Arctic wildlife could face massive extinction. The sea levels are going to rise and elevate, and the city of Miami could become a lost city. It's pretty scary stuff. And would I say it was handled well? Yeah, it was handled well, but there still could have been some work done to make it even more better. I think it lacked in projections rather than just voice boxes, because I think there's like too much voice boxes and not enough projections, not enough visual stuff from a previous, unlike the previous movie that came out before it, which was, I believe it was narrated by former United States Vice President Al Gore, as he did something called The Inconvenient Truth, which is still, which is, I think, probably more provocative than The 11th Hour, although it does a formidable job here, too. So I think I'm a little more pro Inconvenient Truth rather than The 11th Hour, and it's for that reason alone. Too many speak boxes, but not enough visuals. Maybe it's because it wanted to be a little more watered down in its visual indicators, but whatever the case, without visual pictorial stuff, It's just not enough for people to just say things without giving some visuals. The old saying goes, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And here it kind of reigns true in this matter. So, of course, the perpetual liberal agenda is that Hollywood will gladly milk in the celebrity endorsements to challenge this global concern. Not necessarily a bad thing, but I think that we don't necessarily have to have Hollywood to get involved, to get our attention. But for the sake of this matter, I guess it was no choice but for have a Hollywood celebrity to step up and to get the issues across, and not just some ordinary average Joe or Jane Schmo to do this interview. No, no, no. It has to be somebody who's got appeal to themselves. And who's better to conduct this with open heart mixed with narrow minded integrity is none other than Hollywood's golden boy, Leonardo DiCaprio. Oh, I got no problems with Leonardo DiCaprio narrating this. And this is like a sequel to Al Gore's The Inconvenient Truth. DiCaprio just continues where Gore left us, and he also serves as the producer as well. The 11th Hour definitely tells an intelligent and insightful, alarming state of the ecological mismanagement our planet has suffered from over the years, and it doesn't look like it's getting better anytime soon. Uh, what I noticed here is that this documentary has like three different kind of stages. Stage one, it looks at all the damage we've done. Stage two looks at our future if we either continue this trend or if the trend gets worse. But then, in spite of the hard candy on the outside, there's a nice soft creaminess on the inside. The creamy filling part, which is always the best part of a hard candy or or a custard donut. The cream inside tells us that there is still hope for optimism, hope for our children to, fill in our legacy for when our time is up. That way, so they could live in harmony and a much more enviro friendly atmosphere. That way, they don't have to wallow in the shit that we have caused. And, it's like a wake up call for the people in the present to help rejuvenate the future. And, it's actually very impressive that we had a cornucopia of well renowned professors, journalists, authors, scientists, and politicians to discuss this matter of how it has an effect on us and what we should be concerned about. And the big names are actually quite impressive. Among the heavy thinkers is the king of all thinkers. That's right, Dr. Stephen Hawking makes an appearance being one of the interviews and subject. And also politicians like former Soviet Premier Mikhail Gorbachev. But among the most impressive speakers that really caught my attention was the very knowledgeable and well spoken former CIA Director James Woolsey. These mainstream of experts tell us we don't really have the strength to completely destroy the land that gave us life, but rather the ability to make life more complicated towards ourselves and our legacy to follow us when we're dead. It even goes to say that, even once the human race is expunged from this planet, Earth could still continue to provide life. I mean, they survived the dinosaurs, they survived the giant mammals, they survived the cavemen and cave women. And I'm sure planet Earth could continue to thrive even with the human race gone from the equation. Even if the entire Earth is infested and the fleas rule the Earth. It could happen. Will the Earth flourish? Of course. Only except for it just doesn't have humans to fuck up the Earth. Now I know that right now at this time being, people are thinking, "Geez, Eric, I didn't know you had a misanthropy and that you hate human beings." I don't hate human beings, but I do have to say this: we all suck. Not just act necessarily suck as in I hate you all, but it's just that we have all been pretty much we've done a lot of damage. And I want to tell you guys, I don't hate the human race. In fact, I love you guys. I love you all. But sometimes you suck. We're greedy. We're selfish. We're careless. We think that just because we think we have logic, we have rules, we have regulations, that we run this whole gamut. Well, newsflash for you all. We're not alone. There are species on this earth that deserve to live as much as we do. And I'm not trying to be a hypocrite. Maybe even I've done my share of careless things that I haven't always been particularly proud of. I'm not perfect either. But when I look here behind this website is one of you guys. We are all God's children, and we must all embrace that. And to have the love of Mother Earth, we have to take care of it. It is our jobs to take care of it. I mean, the animals on this earth can't really take good care of the damage that we've done. It's up to us. If we damage something, we must repair it. We must fix what we've destroyed. It's like a broken toy that we accidentally stepped on. And now your baby son and your baby daughter is crying. And she'll hate you for it. And they'll hate you for it. So the only practical solution to get them to love him is either fix it or go out and buy a new one as a replacement. That's kind of like what we should be doing to help keep our earth, our home, protected. We need to rejuvenate. And we have to act fast before it's too late. Never mind this whole passive aggressive thing like, oh well, life will go on. No, none of that bullshit. That theory, that bullshit has to stop. We gotta do something. and we got to do something fast. And that's not just saying that that we can't, because we could. If you chop down trees, it's good to regrow them. Recycle. If you have paper, recycle it. If you have a can that you see on the ground, put it in the recycling bin. Don't just be nonchalant about what you're doing. You know, things like that, even little things, can make a big difference. Come on. They're not really actually telling us to do hard, difficult, laborious initiatives. Just a simple little contribution could make a big difference. The mainstream of experts tell us that, okay, so for that much needed celebrity star power, DiCaprio also goes on to narrate this documentary. And though that's not a bad thing, because he definitely does have a great voice for narrating, his gravitas lacks in the maturity compared to either a Morgan Freeman or a George Clooney. I mean, when Morgan Freeman does his voiceover narrations, it has that level of maturity. When George Clooney does his narrations in movies, it has that kind of maturity level. Not to say, and like I said, Leonardo DiCaprio has a good voice, but even for a guy who at the time was in his early 30s, his delivery of words seem way too giddy in all his earnest intentions, and his youthful appearance makes him look like he's posing for a teen magazine. Now, maybe even today when he does narration or voiceovers and stuff like that, I get kind of the feeling that he just does not have that narrative voice for more serious stuff. He's got that kind of kid-like demeanor. Maybe today at 43 years old he probably might have matured or stepped up a bit, but back in 2007, hey, he was 33 at the time, and it was still pretty youthful in his diction. And maybe that just may have deterred a little bit. I might be wrong. I might be wrong. I'm not right all the time. But that's just kind of like just a generalization. I just think he could have just. And this is not a complete nitpicking either. I just felt that the maturity level in his voice over just didn't mesh well compared to a very serious topic. His delivery of words, let's see. And it shows that the novice direction of Leila Connors Petersen and Nadia Connors presented this film way too conventionally. There's just way too many talking heads with only brief fragments of ecological concerning footage. And sometimes these interviewers are only like on briefly, and then they segue to another talking head, and sometimes they don't even have time to finish their sentences. It just goes on very quickly. It's like the direction was done by somebody or someone who has attention deficit disorder. It's like sometimes some of these talking heads don't even get to finish his or her sentences, and it just segues onto another scene. Let them get their voices heard, even if it's just one sentence. Let's finish off what they are trying to say and then move forward. You see, this documentary lasts 92 minutes long. Maybe it could have expanded to maybe an hour and 45 and maybe even the 2 hour mark. And that would have been much, much more better executed. You see, Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth has much better execution than the 11th hour. I mean, it's like you're trying to tell me something important, which is good. I'm glad for that you're trying to tell us something important. You're giving out a very important message. But let the people finish their sentences before moving forward. Don't just rush at things, then that makes everything all fluctuating. Sure, it's giving us a fair warning, which may make you reevaluate your thinking, but it fails to show you the bigger picture. The main question I have for this documentary is, who is their target audience? Granted, it gives the general population as a whole a little something to think about. But in the end, it all comes down to the people already in that train of thought. It's like preaching to the choir. But in the end, well, it's not my fault he came in right away. I can't close the door. Just get somebody to do it. But in the end, it all comes down to the people already in that train of thought. This movie could have potential to convert Bill O'Reilly to volunteer for Greenpeace. But instead, he'll just find a way to conflict himself against the liberal based left wing democratic bias that is Hollywood. The only people who might watch this film are those who may have watched Al Gore's The Inconvenient Truth, which is, quite sad because in that documentary, the lecture is gritty with impressive visuals and a flow that's easy to grasp at. The 11th hour sadly suffers from the fact that it's executed to a more deeper rooted philosophical vibe, which makes it more encapsulating than it is obtainable. Which is sad because there's a lot to talk about in the 11th hour. But in spite of all that doom and gloom that's killing our planet, like I said, it does shed a light of optimism. And the solutions they have for us are both simple and practical. And it's nice that we're not getting lectured by these left wing radical hippies who are telling us that we all need to live in huts and to grow more trees and to eat the foods we grow. And then we have to wear tie-dye shirts and wear peace signs and rally and protest and hug a tree. And we should all just live like bohemians. No, 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 we don't get any of that hippie bullshit. We actually have real, actual, practical thinkers here. Not just some douchebag trying to fucking tell us how to live our lives and to change our ways. No, none of that. Instead, the more intellectuals are just telling us that we don't need to really necessarily change our lifestyles, but rather depend on our modern technology to generate more fuel economy cars and wear recyclable clothing, frugal wind power, and ecologically friendly households. That's really all they're trying to tell us. Pretty simple when you think about it, without going over the top. So, even though the 11th hour is very strong in subject matter and definitely good on intention, the presentation could have been more better. And though I commend Leo DeCaps for a good job well done in narration, we didn't really actually necessarily need a Hollywood star to tell us our wrongdoings. We're capable of figuring it out ourselves without the star power. So, for that in mind, I give the 11th hour out of a scale of 10. I'll give it a 7. It's not as good as The Inconvenient Truth. I think just the projections could have been more there, fewer talking heads, more visual indicators, and I think maybe the 11th hour could have been better. Also, the editing could have improved quite a lot instead of just, and if you're gonna have talking heads, at least let them finish what they are trying to say. As a final note, I know I sounded like I don't like the human race. Well, that is totally not true. I love you all. And I don't want our ecological systems, our ecosystems, to die a slower death. And that we can all chip in to help save our planet from becoming inhabitable. This movie may probably paint a cynical picture through most of the course of the documentary, but in the end, it's practically more optimistic in its delivery. So I thank you all for listening in. If you wish to subscribe to my channel, please feel free to do so. If you wish to leave a comment, go right ahead. But just remember one thing: be kind, be courteous, and don't be rude. And I will be back again with another review. So until next time, this is Eric Road Rider saying peace out. Goodbye.